We are shortly about to get the show underway. So I'm going to start off by welcoming everyone. My name is Councillor Peter Candlish and I'm the Cabinet Member for Transport. Before we start, there is some housekeeping information I have to give to people, and that is that if the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and the public gallery by the stairwells. Don't use the lifts, and assemble at the turning circle at the end of King Henry Street past the University Park building. In order to comply with the Guild Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. And please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished, otherwise the camera will remain on you. Everyone speaking will be on camera, apart from those on the far right over here. So, without any further ado, I'm going to ask myself to start with some introductions, and if we could start with the councillors, please.
I'm Councillor Simon Bowshaw. I'm the Conservative spokesman for Transport.
I'm Councillor Graham Heaney and I'm the Labour Group spokesman for Transport.
Barbara Thomas, TRO Team Lead.
Bethan Clements, Transport Delivery Manager.
Joanne Eldridge, Transport Delivery Lead.
Ian Myhill, Road Safety Manager.
Councillor Judith Smythe, St Jude Ward here to talk about the number 18 bus.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to ask the people in the back row to identify themselves, and then we'll come out to where the majority of people making deputations are, and I'll ask you to identify yourselves so that I can call you at the right moment. But starting on the far left.
Alexandra Malvern, Operational Transport Planner.
Kirpat Singh, TRO Officer.
Lisa Cook, Passenger Transport Manager.
Felicity Tidbury, Assistant Director for Transport.
My apologies, we've now come round to the start, so we could start in the back left, please.
Hi, I'm Jeff Cushway of 5 Eastern Avenue.
I'm Joanne Winslade of 35 Eastern Avenue.
Thank you.
I'm Darren Sanders. I'm a councillor for Baffins, North Milton and South Copner.
Rosanna Bacon, resident of 49 Sandringham Road.
Chris Lavington, Stamshall Lake England Club.
Edward Walsh, Trustee, Stamshall Lake England Club.
Thank you.
Chris Richards, resident of 48 Sandringham Road.
Councillor Kadir Bappensword.
Okay, thank you very much. Strictly, I should have said that if you've introduced yourself, I'm assuming that you are on my deputation list and want to speak. If you don't want to speak, that is absolutely fine. Please stay where you are. Secondly, if we reach your item on the agenda and you are not called, please could you notify that to me? I have occasionally missed people out through error, not design. The way that we will do this is that there will be initially a report presented by officers. I will then ask for deputations from members of the public. Thank you for the prompt. I was thinking about an item later in the agenda where that is not correct, but you are absolutely welcome and will be called upon to speak when it comes to your item on the agenda. Then there will be an opportunity for the councillors here to ask some questions who are regulars on the transport decision-making meeting. Then they will have an opportunity to make some comments, and then finally it's my responsibility to kind of sum up and make a decision. So with that as our introduction, I'm going to now say that we have received an apology from Councillor Standen. And are there any declarations of interest that we need to know about?
Only as a resident of Hayling Avenue, but I'm not anywhere near the bit that's being discussed, so I'm a fair way away from that. So I am a resident of Hayling Avenue.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heaney.
Not personal or prejudicial, I don't think.
Very clear. Okay, we're now going to turn to item number 3, and there's going to be an introduction to the several items that we've got under this classification, and then we're going to go through each item in turn, make a decision, and then move to the next. So, Barbara, I think you're going to take us through an introduction to item 3, the waiting restrictions, various roads report.
Thank you, Councillor. So, minor restrictions on various roads across the city are proposed following inquiries and requests from residents and councillors to address issues of congestion, obstruction and road safety. The problems are identified and investigated by a team of traffic and road safety engineers, and where it is considered that waiting, parking or loading restrictions would address those issues, these are designed and then advertised for public comment. The restrictions proposed for those sites which attracted no objections can be implemented under delegated powers, and this report is for consideration of those for which objections have been received. So the first site is Sandringham Road. It is a residential cul-de-sac in Fratton, just over 200 metres long. There are mainly terraced houses on both sides, and residents largely rely on parking on street, which is within the GA permit parking zone area. A request was received from a resident to introduce waiting restrictions at the eastern closed end to act as a turning area, rather than having to reverse to the nearest turning point, which would be the side road junction with Sandringham Lane, approximately 150 metres west of the closed end. The proposal is to formalise the double yellow line marking, which has been marked on the closed end, and to introduce double yellow lines, no waiting any time restrictions, for approximately 7 metres on both sides of the road, to keep the road clear to act as a turning area. 13 objections were received. These were from residents objecting to the loss of parking space. Given the level of objections, the recommendation is to formalise the marked double yellow lines at the closed end and introduce a shorter length, approximately 3 metres, of double yellow line restrictions on both sides adjacent to that closed end, to assist with manoeuvring in and out of the parking bays. And when the bays are fully occupied, road users would still have to reverse up to 150 metres to turn around, but it appears from the objectors that this is preferable to losing parking spaces.
Thank you very much. I've now got 2 people down to speak, and I'm just taking them in the order they are in on my paper. So I have Chris Richards to speak first for 6, and you have 6 minutes roughly to speak. As you get to about 5 minutes, I'll try to give you some kind of an indication, but not stop you in full flow.
Thank you. If I understood what the officer just said, that the reason for looking at these restrictions was either pedestrian obstruction or road safety, and my understanding is that that actually isn't an issue for Sandringham Road. But moving on, I live in the bottom house at the very end, eastern end of Sandringham Road, and I don't think I have ever had to reverse out of Sandringham Road when it was heavily parked. It's always possible to do, to and fro, and then do a 3 or 4 point turn, and that is what almost all residents do when they're actually getting their cars out, whatever time of the day or night. To actually reduce the proposal from 10 metres to 3 metres just means we'll lose 2 parking spots instead of 4. And given the level of congestion and parking in the road with no options, that's still not satisfactory.
Thank you very much, and commendably brief, so brief that I wasn't ready for you to reach your conclusion. Thank you very much.
My colleague and neighbour behind me is much better speaker than me.
If that is Raisin Begum, would you please start your deputation now, and you two have up to 6 minutes.
Good afternoon, Councillor. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to request that you reject the recommendation to introduce waiting restrictions at the eastern end of Sandringham Road. Sandringham Road, as you've been told is a dead-end road. Residents choose to live here in full knowledge that every vehicle entering the road must always turn to leave. This is normal for a dead end and not inherently problematic. Importantly, there is no off-road parking. Every household relies on on-street parking, so even the loss of a few spaces has a direct impact on residents' daily lives. From my experience as a resident of over 7 years, I have never needed to reverse the full length of the road to the nearest junction. While manoeuvring is required, there is almost always sufficient space to turn well before the junction. The original proposal appears to have been triggered by a single resident, but no further details have been provided. It is therefore unclear what prompted the request. It is frustrating that a lone voice seems to have generated this issue, whereas long-term residents like myself and Chris have been content with the current arrangements for many years. The proposed no waiting restrictions treat the need to reverse down the road to the junction as a constant problem, but in reality, such an issue would be, if it were to occur, limited to a very specific period late at night, typically around 9:30 p.m. to about 3:30 a.m., which is when residents are at home. Outside of these hours, the road becomes much less constrained and vehicles have plenty of opportunities to turn where they prefer not to reverse down to the junction. Despite this, the proposal introduces permanent 24-hour restrictions, which is, I consider, disproportionate response to a temporary and predictable situation. The restrictions also will not achieve the stated aim. Even with the revised measures, as has been stated, the engineer's comments state that vehicles wishing to turn around would still need to reverse toward the junction, meaning that the problem that triggered the council's interest is not addressed at all. In addition, the report does not explain why it is considered a problem for vehicles to reverse down the road to the junction. In my experience, it's rarely necessary to do so. The underlying assumption appears to be that reversing is inherently bad. In reality, all drivers should be capable of controlling their vehicles with safety, and reversing is a normal and expected part of driving, particularly on a dead-end road. This assumption does not justify removing essential parking from residents. The more likely issue is that the report does not address is in respect of vehicles entering the road without realising that Sandringham Road is actually a dead end. If they do so during the very early hours of the morning, then it is likely that they will have to reverse down to the junction. A better solution may be that improved signage or road markings to prevent vehicles turning into the road rather than removing essential parking could be explored. On safety, the report provides no evidence of accidents or obstruction. There is nothing in the council's assessment to suggest a persistent safety problem. Removing essential parking on this basis would be difficult to justify. And I would just briefly like to mention that the report asserts that it did carry out proper consultation, but I have to say that I did not receive a council letter, and I would not have been aware of these proposals had it not been for the efforts that Chris went to notify the residents at the end of Sandringham Road of the proposal. Therefore, the reports which refer to the 13 objections were entirely down to her efforts to notify residents that this proposal was being brought forward. In summary, therefore, I would suggest that this proposal seeks to address an issue that long-term residents have not raised as a concern. It fails to achieve its intended purpose and removes essential parking where there is no other alternative. And if there is an issue, that may be better resolved through improved signage or road markings. And for those reasons, Councillor, I would urge you that you reject this recommendation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and also thank you for keeping so admirably to time. Are there any questions from the councillors? Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Peter. I don't normally get involved in local issues like this because it's, in my view, it's always been that the residents are the ones that know best. But I'm curious, you've had one resident, by the looks of it says originally requested by a resident to introduce the double yellow lines, and then reading down through the report, at the very bottom of page 3, 4.1.2, the engineer's response, feedback from the consultation indicates that many residents are generally satisfied with the existing parking arrangements and would prefer to retain the available parking, which is what we've heard today. So then as City Council, we've gone, oh, all right then, actually we'll just halve it. Why don't you just not do it in the first place? Why do we need to halve something?
Thank you. I think was that a rhetorical question or a specific question? Sorry, Councillor Poacher. I didn't mean that. Sorry, that probably came across in the wrong way.
You could take it either way. The point I'm making is that from the report, one person said, can we put double yellow lines in? We've had 2 deputations here, and it would suggest, and I read that, feedback from the consultation indicates that many residents, so the majority would suggest, don't do it. So why are we, as a council, exploring doing something that's a halfway house instead? Well, surely if the majority says don't do it, then my suggestion would be leave it alone.
So I think I'll make some comments at the end. I think obviously the attempt was made to address both sides of the points put into the council, because as is so often the way in the transport matter, it is possible and reasonable to argue to both sides of the case. And I hear the point about only one resident raising an issue, and we have to think that there is a sufficiently substantive reason behind that to warrant taking it forward. In this case, and it was, sometimes it may be that someone will write in and not every case will be taken. This one has been brought, so we'll make a decision based on this one. Councillor Heaney, I see you're fiddling with your microphone.
I'm fiddling with my microphone, yes. I just wanted to check, you're actually going to take each of the road items separately and do them as a decision, sort of one after another, like that? You're not going to do the whole report? Is that how you're going to do it?
That is correct, Councillor Heaney. And for the benefit of anyone watching at home, our large and interested audience, that is because I feel that with these ones in particular, they're very specific, and if we leave them until the end, people forget about the rationale which was given about any particular item. We will see how this goes, but that is how I intend to do it today.
Okay, that's
and I'm afraid there are no further questions allowed from the people making deputations. No. Councillor Heaney.
So I wanted to ask a question. Is there any history of previous requests to do anything about the road? We've had one. Is there any previous history?
I'm not aware of it, but then I've only been working with the council for the last 3 years, so there may well have been something in the past I'm not aware of.
I mean, to be quite honest, I'll make my comment now that I underlined exactly the points that Councillor Bosch raised. We very rarely comment in detail on things that are not in our wards, because obviously we don't feel we know them well enough. But I do know Sandringham Road because I've been down there many, many times. And it does seem rather strange that the report actually says feedback from consultation indicates many residents are generally satisfied and would like it left the same. So with 13 people saying we really will be upset if you do this, and only one apparently saying, I think the logic of the decision would probably be to say no to doing this.
I would agree with my erstwhile colleague, but I would also point out that there is, in 4.1.1, respondents stated that no evidence of safety problems have been identified, noting that the absence of recorded accidents or observed obstructions over several decades. My view is if it ain't broke, why are we trying to fix it?
So I'm going to jump in here because I think we're all heading to the same point for slightly different reasons. So I think it is a reasonable question to have been asked. There are issues about reversing. I think it is inherently more dangerous than other manoeuvres that people do. However, there is also an argument that it is a dead-end road, and actually quite a lot of people kind of know Portsmouth and know it's a dead-end road, and if we make it easier to turn, we might actually encourage more people to be using it late in the evening as a way of hanging around or doing something. I'm also, because there is both no direct evidence of safety issues in the past and no real worrying sign of this being a problem, I think that I am minded to leave well alone at the moment, and I'm going to therefore, let me get to the recommendation. So the recommendation is to improve the implementation of a reduced length on Sandringham Road, and I'm going to disagree with that and not support it. There was also a reasonable attempt, I think, made to find a compromise of shortening that, but even on that shortening, on this instance, and we will look at these one by one, I think the combination of the pressure of the parking in the area, the nature of the road, leads me to say that I'm happy to leave that as it is at the moment. Thank you very much. We're now going to move to the next one, which is Eastern Avenue. Barbara, I think you're back on, please.
Thank you, Councillor. So this is a residential road in the shape of a crossroads in Baffin's ward. And over recent years, residents have reported the absence of double yellow lines at the road ends and junctions, and highlighted that this causes people to park in inappropriate places and obstruct both visibility and actually obstruct the passage of vehicles, such that they can't actually enter or exit the road, mostly late at night when people come home, and mostly from vans, which are that little bit wider than cars. Also, these vehicles are parked on footways, forcing pedestrians to walk in the carriageway. So we've proposed to install double yellow line restrictions around the junctions and at the end of the turning heads on the two cul-de-sac parts of the road. 7 objections were received, largely to the loss of parking, which would lead to displacement of potentially up to 6 vehicles. And the parking pressure, the objectors stated that the parking pressure was typically only bad during football match days, generated both by visiting spectators, and they were largely happy with the status quo.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm now going to turn to the deputations. So once again, I have a number of people. I'm just taking them in the order that I have them. So first of all, I have Jeffrey Cashway, and I'm going to give you 6 minutes, kind of starting from now.
Hello, yes. Parking's already chaotic on that road. There's over 20 drop curbs and 3 disabled bays. I think there is a more pragmatic and balanced approach to be struck than 10 metres of double yellow lines at each corner. 10 metres of double yellow lines is not going to stop big vans parking on the road. And I'd argue against, I think that there's, we're going to lose up to 8 available parking spaces because there are people who drive smaller cars. This appears to be 0 to 100 with no consideration for residents. There are no parking easement measures in place currently, and I know that we're down to have zone parking. That would help us. We need help. We don't need more restrictions. This will impact people's social lives and practical lives, as visitors to the area will be unlikely to find parking, including carers and visitors of the elderly, the more vulnerable and disabled residents. This will also move the parking issue onto other areas, so people finishing late at night at work won't be able to find parking. They'll have to go down to Moorings Way School, and this may also negatively impact housing prices in the area. I wouldn't move into the area if I saw this amount of double yellow lines. It's just not proportionate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kadir.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me this time. I and my fellow Lib Dem councillors for the area opposed the plan for Eastern Avenue. We note in the consultation no one supported it, even those people who report says wanted it. That alone should be enough of a sign not to go ahead with this. The issue of verge parking mentioned in Mooring Way exists. Indeed, it is already with the road safety team and parking enforcement. Losing this parking space in what is a narrow cul-de-sac with many hard-standing areas will only make matter worse, and we urge you not to proceed with this. I have 68 signatures in this form, and they wanted me to read some of the problems they face every day. That is 68 plus residents who live in this road who cannot be here today. and I don't think we have space for all this, do we? Number one.
You do not, Councillor Kadir. You have about 3.5 minutes left, but I'm sure we will get a flavour from those minutes.
Okay. This will take 11 space outside and inside the cul-de-sac. Not a problem. The number two, I'm reading out 12 points they want me to read out. So not a problem here to fix. No passing through traffic. Argumental between neighbors, parking too close. Cars parking so close, possibly damaged. Causing cars to park on a nearby the streets. First come, first basis, unfair to people who work late night. Crime, as you will know, when people are parking late night is difficult. Devalue your house price. Never been an accident before. Overall waste of public money. So these are the comments, concerns are written to me by 68 plus residents. So I urge you again to please consider and listen to the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kadir. Leaving 2.5 minutes on the clock. Very well done. Councillor Sanders.
Yes, thank you very much. I really can't top what Kadir's just said, but I do want to make some observations following on from what Jeffrey was saying and also from what our colleagues on Sandringham Road were saying as well. This really does feel like this is the 0 to 100 option. And I think, and I'm sensing a theme already in this meeting, which is a resident comes along and says, look, I really don't like this. Could you change it? And then the traffic team go away. They don't figure out options, they just come with one solution. And here I want to praise the work of Ian Myhill in particular, who when with colleagues in nearby roads in this area said we've got a range of traffic problems. Ian came up with options. Ian came up with advantages and disadvantages of the various things. And actually that's led to a whole series of comments which are with Ian, I have to say. But I think that's a much more involving way that will lead, I think, to a better solution in the end, even if the solution is nothing changes, because people will feel involved. And I think that's a much better way of working than what appears to be here and what appears to be in Sandringham Road. So that's more around the theme that's emerging here, rather than the scheme itself, which I think is a pile of hooey myself. I hope that's less than 2.5 minutes, Peter.
I don't even have you on the clock, Councillor Sanders, because I was confident you would be less. Okay, moving now to councillors. Any questions or, well, let's do questions first. Any comments? Councillor Bosher.
I was surprised that Councillor Sanders didn't use up his full time, because he usually does. Perhaps this is a slight question, because I believe Ian's behind me. Have there been conversations going on about this particular one with regards to a more holistic approach with regards to it? Because it does seem as if we're going to be putting something in here when there are other conversations going on to see whether there's a better way of doing it. It may well be that it might come back to this if there's no other way, but I think the comments that Darren made about residents needing to feel involved in a wider solution might be a case for saying, let's not approve this one and bring it back another time.
So, Councillor Bosher, I will ask Ian to say a few words, but I would ask him not to stray away from the item, too far away from the item we have on the table today. I think in general, in transport, we try to approach these problems in as holistic a way as possible and as an area-based approach where possible, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to individual road schemes, it is sometimes a very specific thing that we are talking to. So with that frame, is there anything you have to add, Ian?
Not hugely. I'd just say that we try and embed the place-based making theory into everything we're trying to do. So we're trying to look at the holistic area as a whole, embedding healthy streets into everything we're doing, and looking at and embedding road safety in what we do as well.
Okay, any comments, or else I'm going to...
It was more a question, actually, if you don't mind. The issue I suppose I sort of raised, we get a sort of outline plan of the area. It doesn't really tell us a lot, except that there's going to be restrictions on particular. We don't know where there are drop curbs and where there is parking available. We've got things like no waiting at a time and disabled parking bays. And in the actual report, it doesn't actually say anything about the nature of the road, i.e. its current situation. Now, I'm not suggesting we should make these into sort of war and peace discussions about the nature of the road, but it does make it difficult if you don't know that road to be absolutely clear. Well, I'm assuming that the cabinet member may well even have gone and visited it, I don't know, or had his colleagues giving detailed information about it. But for us sitting here, we don't always necessarily, I mean, we don't make a decision because we have no vote, so in that sense it's probably not relevant. But I do think reading it, it's not always clear what the nature of the road is and the clarity with the decision making, particularly if it's a fairly close run thing. I mean, I think this is another one where it looks like most of the residents say, no, don't do this because it's going to make things worse, and I would probably concur with that. It looks a bit like sort of 0-2 to the residents at the moment on the way these things are going, but I'll leave it at that.
I'm going to leave that as a comment and kind of go to my summary. So I think this is another one, again, where I think it is a reasonable thing for residents to have raised, because if you look at the DFT, the Department for Transport guidelines about what should happen at every road junction, there is a good reason for putting these in, and I could well imagine that some people would want the measures that are proposed here made. However, there were a couple of things that I wanted to call out around here about the overall process. We have to deal with whatever comes in terms of requests, and it is not always possible to provide multiple options or as much detail as Councillor Heaney would rightly expect. This is a problem which I think will get worse with the local government reorganisation that's coming up, because I have actually been to, I think, all of the roads which are in the report today, but I think it is very unlikely that that will be the case in the future. Knowing a little bit about this road as I do, and also know that we have a big issue with pavement parking generally coming down the track, which we are not yet at. I think from the local community point of view, whilst understanding both sides of the story, my recommendation is once again to not take the action that is proposed here, and we will leave things as they are. I leave open the possibility that this might come back if we get stronger guidelines from the government or there are implications from the pavement parking. Okay, thank you very much. We're now going to move to the third item, which is Brecon Avenue and Carmarthen Avenue. Barbara.
Thank you, Councillor. So this is a set of residential roads in Drayton and Farlington Ward on the edge of Portsdown Hill. And each of the roads going north-south in that area, Brecon Avenue, Carmarthen Avenue, Merthyr Avenue and Aberdare Avenue, are a similar layout with reasonably wide roads, and they will have pedestrian access up onto Portsdown Hill. So we had a request received from one resident multiple times, reporting long-standing issues associated with the unprotected turning head at the closed end of the road, where vehicles regularly park at the top of the road, restricting manoeuvring space, and has resulted in repeated damage to this resident's boundary fence caused by vehicles trying to turn where there are parked vehicles in the way, so to speak. The resident highlighted that the cul-de-sac serves as a pedestrian route for people accessing Portsdown Hill, and that parked vehicles at the closed end force pedestrians and mobility scooter users into the carriageway, which she feels and we feel is unsafe. It's people blocking access to the footways. During the investigation, the team took a wider review of the cul-de-sac layouts across all of those 4 roads, and found that each road shares similar geometric layout, and all of them have access onto Portsdown Hill. So with that in mind, we felt that we could treat all 4 in a similar way. So we proposed to introduce 10 metres of double yellow line restrictions at the closed ends of all of those roads. We received a number of objections from particularly Brecon Avenue and Carnarvon Avenue, stating that the removal of parking would reduce the essential day-to-day parking curbside capacity and could displace vehicles further down the hill, where, given the gradient and narrower sections, this could lead to congestion and more problems further down the hill. The objectors report that service vehicles, including refuse trucks, already manoeuvre safely, and that occasional visitor parking doesn't impede access, and they would prefer to see the status quo remain. Carmarthen Avenue attracted one objector, but again with similar concerns. Given that the request came from a resident of one street, i.e. Merthyr Avenue, the recommendation is to approve the implementation of the restrictions on Merthyr Avenue and Aberdare Avenue as advertised. Those two roads didn't receive any objections, and to not approve the proposed restrictions on Brecon Avenue and Carmarthen Avenue. Thank you.
I don't have any deputations for this, so I'm going to move straight to questions. Councillor Bosher, any questions? Okay, no questions arising. Comments?
I mean, I would concur with the don't go ahead. It's probably going to cost me a voter or two, but never mind. It is what it is. But I'm very familiar with all these four roads, and they're all very long roads. They've all got off-street parking, and certainly you do get cars that sort of park at the top so they can go and walk their dogs. And that would be it. They're not used. It's not a destination that people go and park their cars to go and do something else other than walk their dogs. They're wide enough, say there's off-street parking there, and I'm quite, well, I'm not surprised, but I don't see any merit in going forward with these proposals at all. It works well, if you like, in that respect. Refuse trucks go all the way to the top of the hill, absolutely no problem at all. And actually the roads are wide enough that you can easily do a three-point turn, and you just don't have to do it all the way up at the turning head. But yeah, that's my comments on that one. I think just don't do it.
Okay, so we look at each one of these cases on their merits, and I think it was the right thing when we had two of the avenues here come up for discussion to look at all of them, because they all have basically the same issues. Yeah. It is interesting that there wasn't more objections to stuff going on. I think it is down to the characteristics of that road. They are particularly wide, and there is often space further down the road. And if you're going for a walk with the dog to start 50 metres further down the road, you know, it's all part of your steps and your exercise. So I'm therefore going to agree with the recommendation to not implement in the two. I'm going to agree with the recommendation to not approve the no waiting at any time restrictions on Brecon and Carmarthen. And I think, because I don't know what the implications would be of introducing it on the other ones alone, and I don't see overwhelming value in doing so, and because I don't see any major safety concerns within this, I'm basically going to recommend that we don't put those waiting restrictions in any of those avenues. So it will essentially stay as is. Okay, I'm now going to move to item 4 on the agenda, 4.4, which is Hayling Avenue. On Hayling Avenue, we do have deputations, and we're back to Councillor Kadir and Councillor Sanders. You know how the game is played. You have 6 minutes. Councillor Kadir.
I'll be short and sweet. Thank you again for On the Hailing Avenue proposal, I'm speaking on behalf of those residents who have come to us as local councillors to oppose this reduction. Many of the arguments are outlined in the objections. However, the key ones for me are, number one, traffic in the road. I have recently done a survey on this after residents here came to us. We are waiting for this decision before telling them the outcome. But I can say our finding had most people saying there is a traffic problem, but people split on how to resolve it. However, the stretch between Marina and Avery, mentioned in the first objection, was a real issue for people. Reducing the line here limits the passing of traffic. Number two, visibility at the junction of Hailing and Marina. This is linked to the first point. Hailing has an existing traffic issue which led to the council at our request bringing an extra 20-mile-an-hour sign on the road, the lamppost. On this basis, we want you to pursue, not to pursue these two schemes. And to add to this morning we had 2 accidents in end of Hailing Avenue and Baffins. So that shows you how dangerous the speed is. And I think as a traffic officers, we must do something to reduce the traffic. 2 big accident this morning happened. So, I think there's something we must do quickly and urgently as possible before something drastic happens. So I urge you to look into this for future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kadir. And Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Peter. I'm going to speak on behalf. Now, I mentioned in dispatches in the consultation documents of these things that people have come to me saying they didn't like it. I have to say, we as local councillors informed local people of the proposals for Wells and for Kirple and for Eastern Avenue and for here, because we thought it was important to get residents' responses. But I will speak for those people who've come to me in favour of this. This is not the first time this has been round the course, Graham. This happened a few years ago, and I was one of those people who was vehemently against it because I couldn't see the point. Kadir has outlined the reasons I outlined a few years ago very eloquently. But for those people who are in favour, and there are people who come to us who are in favour of the scheme, the issue is really around just trying to get more parking spaces in place. That is a really, really long section at a junction with Marina Grove. It is a road that's already seen, and thanks to the traffic team, increased signage both on the road and on lampposts with regards to trying to enforce the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's what the reaction. That's one of the reasons that the 3 of us did the survey in the first place, to see if any other work was required. So there is a real issue, and particularly around the business vans that park there. There's real concern about van parking in the area. Several people want depots back. This council ain't having it back because it flogged it, and so did several businesses. So there's the issue for the people who want this in Hailing Avenue is basically around parking. Peter, if I can indulge you about one thing that isn't on the objections list, but is just being waved through, and I don't have necessarily a problem with it, and I do have to declare an interest, and it's round the corner from where I live in Stride Avenue, and that is the one at 151 Eastern Road and the changes there. I have no problem with the changes, but I really do think that we do need to address the bigger problem around visibility there, which is all the vans that are parked next to the Eastern Road on that stretch. Now, I accept that many of them are council tenants. It's where the council block is, and I oversee council housing. And I'm happy to have a positive discussion around that. And again, as with other areas, there may not be a proper answer to it, or there may be one that's in the too hard category. But I think that although I've got no problem with what's being proposed, all of the 3 Baffins councils have at different times complained about the vans that are being parked on there and how it's obstructing sight lines, particularly for people who want to get out of Stride, my road, Stride Avenue, and even worse, Hailing Avenue. So whilst I've got no problem with that, I would respectfully suggest that we can all try and work together to see if we can tackle the problem of the vans. They're parking in front of the bus stops. So thank you very much, Peter, for your indulgence.
Thank you, Councillor Sanders. Just about staying within the scope of the item on the table. So I now turn to the councillors here if they've got any questions or clarifications they want about the report. Any comments?
Make a factual comment, if I may. I did see one of the accidents in Hanning Avenue, and it was actually the junction of Hanning Avenue and Baffins Road, where a car had managed to get itself right across the other side of the road, almost into the parked cars. I'm not quite sure how they managed to do that, but there is a general problem, I think, that Councillor Sanders really about visibility on Hanning Avenue, because some of the side roads you just cannot see vehicles coming either way, and you have to edge out very, very carefully. And sometimes, and it always seems to be somebody with an SUV, doesn't seem to think that they have to slow down and let you go, you come out, but there we are. And I also think the point that Councillor Sanders made about the balance between getting some extra parking space, but also keeping an area that allows people to turn in and allow other vehicles to come up, because Hanning Avenue is very long and there's a lot of parking on the road. So I think there's balance on both sides, and I think it's interesting that we have two ward councillors who actually have different views on this particular item.
That's transport for you as well, Councillor Bosher. It is very possible to be right on in different parts of the argument. Councillor Bosher's insight into the workings of transport and the issues we wrestle with, his microphone wasn't on, but I think we'll just move beyond it, and the people in the room will accept what he says. Anything more else? I've got some things to say on this. So it is clearly one where it is very possible to have a view on both sides of the argument. I think we have to be careful. It is unfortunate that there has been an accident in the nearby area, but we should make these decisions as if they had not occurred, or if they would have occurred 3 weeks ago. The issue should be more or less the same. There's also been commentary around vans and the pressure on parking. So if I take those two separately, on vans, as the law and everything else stands at the moment, a van, a small works van, is no different to any other vehicle on the road. And indeed, as Councillor Heaney points out, may indeed be smaller than some cars. So we don't have a way of differentiating between those to treat them any differently, even though I do recognise that the number of them is growing rapidly in the city with online shopping and all the other and the closure of the depots, and that is a space that we will have to investigate. In terms of the parking, we are normally worried about the loss of parking, and this is an opportunity to increase the level of parking. So it tells me something that usually it is a very popular thing to be doing, to be supporting increasing parking. So the fact that not everyone is universally in favour of it tells me there may be some other factors around here. I think for one of the issues is also around the flow of traffic around these areas. So a little bit of space on the road on some of these very, very tight roads up in Baffins and other parts of our city is quite useful to enable traffic to hopefully let other vehicles come through and to have the same thing happen to them. That said, the option of reducing it does not seem a bad idea, because it was put in for a different purpose, and that purpose is no longer there. As you can tell, I don't have a clear mindset on which one this is going to go to from my mind, because I think it is a very tight call. I'm going to continue what will dangerously be described as a theme, which it is not. It is a consideration of individual items as they have come. I am not convinced, I'm not sufficiently convinced that it is worth changing the current situation with some of the other factors that we have got out on this area for consideration. So I would like to retain this on the radar for consideration as part of a wider consideration about what we might do for roads up there, but I am not today going to approve this to go forward and to cause a job to be raised. So I am therefore not going to approve the recommendation to approve the reduction of the no waiting at any time restrictions on Hayling Avenue as advertised. I'm therefore going to move on to item 4.5, which is Melrose Close. Barbara, you're back.
Thank you, Councillor. Melrose Close in Milton Ward. It was requested by local ward councillors on behalf of residents who were concerned about cars being parked from other neighbouring roads. So they requested that the west side of the road was protected, where residents of other roads blocked the off-street parking places, residents off-street parking places, and they also asked for the access to the garages on the west side and the northern closed end to be protected. So the requests were reviewed, and we proposed no waiting restrictions along the whole of the west side of Melrose Close, the spine road, so to speak, and further no waiting anytime restrictions on the whole of the northern closed end, which provides access to 3 houses, and also the west side, which provides access to an off-street garage block. 3 objections were received and 1 comment in support. The objections were all from residents, so the comments were all from residents. The objections raised concerns about potential parking displacement, particularly during the evening, which could impact residents themselves. The residents explained that the garages that are provided all of the residents have at least 1 off-road parking space, but the garages are too narrow for modern cars, resulting in more people relying on being able to park on street. Overall, the residents indicated that while some level of restriction may be appropriate, they felt that the proposed extents were too much. However, the proposal would deter parking in those locations which were requested. And then we had a further request from a resident who asked for additional restrictions between short sections between a couple of houses, number 18 and 19 and numbers 22 to 28. However, in the engineer's view, parking in those particular restrictions doesn't cause obstruction. We would consider that to be a legitimate curbside parking space. And our recommendation is to approve the implementation of the restrictions as advertised. Thank you.
I don't have any deputations for this, so are there any questions from councillors? Any comments? Okay, here we go again. On this instance, could I ask actually, just for kind of also for the record as it were, in the report it talks about the parking outside numbers 4 to 8. The parking spaces outside number 4 to 8 cannot be designated private as they're located on the adopted public highway and must remain available for general use. Could you just explain that a bit more?
Yes, this was a development that was built in the 1980s, and those parking spaces outside numbers 4 to 8 were designated as visitor spaces, which is why the authority chose to adopt that part of the road. I imagine they're probably used as part of the general on-street parking stock. There are dedicated spaces around the corner which are for specific households, and they are off-highway. We have no control over those.
And those ones which you described as effectively used as general parking spaces, is the recommendation going to prevent that from continuing as is?
No, that would continue as is.
Okay, so on the basis of that clarification, I had a couple of things to say about this one. So there is an increasing problem with the size of vehicles getting better, and that meaning that garages, which inherently should be a place for people to put their cars, are not being used for that, and that is putting more pressure on the road. I'm a broken record about saying that the number of vehicles in the city is rising all the time, but the space is not, and we have increasing desire from people to have safer roads, which often also means a reduction in the space available for parking. So there's a lot of pressure on parking. That said, particularly the entrance to this, I think there is a good justification for doing this, and because the additional spaces, as described by Barbara at the end there, are still going to be available for people to use. I am happy to accept the recommendation as laid out to approve the implementation of no waiting at any time restrictions on Melrose Close as advertised. Item 4.6, Templeton Close. Barbara.
Thank you, Councillor. The Templeton Close in Hilsea Ward, we had a request for introduction of waiting restrictions on Templeton Close from a ward councillor in response to reported increased parking obstruction within the cul-de-sac. Vehicles have been parking on the large circular area serving all of the houses. Perhaps I should explain. Templeton Close is accessed. It's a sort of lollipop shape. It's got a narrow entrance road with a lay-by either side, and then ends in a large circular area with a central grassed island, which has some parking spaces, and all of the houses are accessed off that large circular area. And then in each corner, if you can have a corner of a circular area, there are off-road parking courts, which provides the off-road parking, at least one per household. Some households have also turned their front gardens into driveways. So we proposed to, in response to this, we reviewed the situation, and we've proposed to introduce WL line restrictions on one side of the narrow part of the road, so leaving the lay-bys unrestricted, and also around the outer side of the circular area. The circular area the carriageway is sufficiently wide to allow parking with care on the inner side. Plus, there is the island has been modified so as to allow some parking where the grassed area used to be. Concerns have also been raised. I think this one's come about partly because it's proximity to a school, and the area is also used for drop-off and pick-up of school children, so it gets quite congested at school start and finish times. But residents did say that there was a problem of obstructive parking at all times, and the recommendation is therefore to implement the restrictions as advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Any comments? Okay, so on this one, so firstly, a general comment, as I often do at the start of these things. There is an issue around schools and people parking inappropriately to drop off kids, and that is something we need to tackle on a wider basis than this, though it obviously has an impact on this particular case. Looking at this location, the key thing that I am minded about is that this is designed to be a lollipop-shaped road construction, which requires vehicles to be able to go round the circle. So fundamentally, that is what I think we need to be looking to achieve, and what these road restrictions are proposing to help achieve. I am a little bit concerned that without lines on the inside of the road, we are simply going to get people parking on the smaller inside lollipop, and that is going to mean that we haven't achieved all of the goals that we have set out, but that is outside and greater than the scheme that we advertised, and therefore I'm going to recommend that we accept the scheme as advertised, but we keep an eye on it to see how things actually go forward, whether it actually solves the problem that it's set out to address. So I am therefore going to approve the implementation of no waiting at any time restrictions on the close as advertised. I'm therefore going to move to item 4.7, 3rd Avenue in Cosham Ward. Barbara.
Yes, this is a cul-de-sac accessed by a narrow spine carriageway, so to speak. And we had a request for no waiting at any time restrictions from a ward councillor. Double yellow line, no waiting at any time restrictions have already been introduced on one side of the turning head, and it was requested that whilst this was helpful, it really needed to be matched on the other side to provide the full width of the turning head to be used. We had one objection from a resident objecting to reduction of the already limited parking available at that end of the road. However, there is very little parking on the whole road, and it would not be appropriate for vehicles to have to reverse out onto the main road at the southern end. So there would be loss of one, or potentially displacement of one vehicle, but the recommendation is to approve the implementation of the restrictions as advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Any?
It's sort of a question of clarification, because when I read the report, it said during the consultation one objection was received, and then the summary of key issues says residents in the plural objected to the reduction in meeting. So I thought, oh, well, maybe this is somebody writing on behalf of people. So I went and had a look at the actual objection, and it doesn't mention anyone else other than the individual. So this is, I'm not trying to be pernickety, but it just adds a little bit of confusion. It's not residents objecting, it's a resident objecting. So it's the one objection from the one resident, not a resident speaking on behalf of others, which I assumed was why it mentioned residents objecting on the thing. So I just wanted to clarify that, if that is correct as far as I read it.
Barbara?
One resident. Apologies for the mistake.
Okay, any more questions, clarifications or comments? So I've looked at this one as well. It is odd that we do not have the matching restriction on the other side. Parking loss is always a contentious matter, but I think that in this instance it is merited, and that the implications of the loss of the space are not so severe that we should not do this. It is a small number of residents who are involved in some of these decisions, but and we might have a think about that. But having reached this point, I am minded to accept the recommendation and approve the implementation of the no waiting at any time restrictions on 3rd Avenue as advertised. 4.8, Wells Close and Kirple Road, Baffins.
Thank you. This was a request from one resident who's concerned about obstruction at the junction of Kirple Road and Wells Road. Vehicles frequently parking too close to the junction mouths, particularly on the Wells Road side. It results in restricted visibility when emerging from Kirple Road, especially when larger vehicles or vans occupy the curbside space. And parked vehicles also make the carriageway narrow, and there's potential for completely obstructing the carriageway as well. One objection was received, and the recommendation is to approve the implementation of the proposal.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. We have only one deputation, Councillor Sanders. So if you would like to give your deputation.
Thank you, Peter. I think it's my turn to lose some votes here. I agree with the rationale for this. Whenever I walk through the Kirple estate, I see plenty of vans that are parked at this junction, not necessarily illegally, but certainly far too close to be able to get in. Both of the Wells and Besant close cul-de-sacs are quite narrow, with additional parking spaces. There's lots of drop curbs, lots of hard standing across the estate, and lots of cars that are available, as well as some of the parking spaces. I understand there's always an issue with parking, and this estate was frankly not built for the level of cars that exists, but that is unfortunately life when it comes to planning. So I broadly support this. One thing I would suggest, Peter, is that it talks about not just no waiting at any time around the junction radii, which I think is an incredibly good idea, but also 12 more metres of not waiting at any time on both sides of Wells Close. This will probably take it to the entrance to what passes for the park in that particular close there, and I would respectfully suggest trying to reduce that second set of restrictions to a more common level. 10 metres has always been banged around this place with regards to double yellow lines at junctions, and I think reducing that second section of restrictions will actually be able to deal with some of the parking problems whilst actually getting to the nub of the issue, which is vans that are parking at a junction when they shouldn't. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Any questions? I should know the answer to. I'm guessing that the 12 metres is because it's a radii rather than a straight road, because typically it would normally be 10 metres, which is the kind of the go-to DFT guideline that we try to adhere to wherever possible.
I'd say actually in this case it's because if you go down into Wells Close, there's parking spaces at right angles to if you look at the map in the report pack, there's parking spaces at right angles to the road, to the carriageway just beyond that.
Thank you very much. That clears it up for me, and also shows that we do look at all of these on a case-by-case basis. I heard what Councillor Sanders said, but I think he's exceeding the TRO that we have in front of us. So I'm going to thank him for his comment, but focus on this, and I am going to approve the implementation of no waiting at any time restrictions on Wells Close and Kirple Road as advertised. Thank you very much. And I think Barbara will be very grateful to know that she's going to get a short break now, because I'm now going to change the order of gentlemen with deputations. Have I missed you out? I warned you, it was a risk. Forgive me.
They're for Stamshaw Lake.
Stamshaw Lake. In that case, I'm going to change the agenda order, and we're going to do Stamshaw Lake next. In which case, Barbara, I don't think does get a break. But she knows when is coming, and we will take that as success. Okay, so we're now going to move to item number 5 on the agenda, which is around Stamshaw Lake car park. Barbara.
Thank you, Councillor. Stamshaw Lake car park, this is situated on the east side of the M275. It's intended for use by Stamshaw Lake Angling Club and Harbour School Lighthouse campus, as well as for the public using the nearby park. It's currently free to use, there's got no restrictions on it, and it's over in recent years the car park has been increasingly used for long-term parking, storage of untaxed vehicles, trade vehicles, and a sort of overflow car park for residents. and it's reduced the availability for the legitimate users who, as I understand, actually pay for the privilege and are not able to take advantage of that. So the Culture and Leisure Services have requested that parking services take over the management and enforcement of the car park, and to introduce a time limit of 4 hours to enable the intended users, the casual users, to be able to enjoy the park and so on. So 4 hours, no return within 4 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. Permits would be issued to vehicles used in connection with the Harbour School and Stamshall Lake Angling Club. And they would be able to park without time limit, provided they have their permit. The purpose of the proposal is to ensure that the overall character and enjoyment of the surrounding area is preserved, and that the car park can be used for its intended purpose. And we received 6 responses, 4 in support, 1 general comment and 1 objection. The objection is from a resident who is concerned that many residents rely on being able to park within the car park when the nearby roads are full, and he's requested that the time-limited parking be applied from Monday to Friday only, rather than every day, to enable residents to be able to use it over the weekend. However, this would lead to the car park potentially being unusable at the times when casual visitors would wish to use it. So the recommendation is to introduce the time limit on the car park as advertised.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, this is your moment. I have Christopher Lovington as the first to speak.
Yeah, thank you. We're in total agreement with the proposal, because over the last 5 years, our business as a small community club has suffered. Our dray cannot even make deliveries in the week, and weekends it's totally unusable, the public slipway there. On Sunday morning, the parking was that bad I couldn't even access the car park, because they were 3 abreast across the centre of the car park. As you've just been told, it's become a dumping ground for untaxed vehicles, people doing repair work, illegal garages run from the car park. My main concern is there's a school, a public slipway and a boatyard there. If you needed Coast Guard, fire, A&E, any emergency service, someone could end up possibly dying because it's that bad. Christmas, we had a van blocking our gate, and when a lady came to remove some stuff from it, she informed me it was her son. He's on 2 weeks holiday in Egypt. But she had the keys, but she didn't drive, so she couldn't move it. And he didn't even live in the area. He parked it there for convenience, for his mother to keep an eye on it. And this is a theme that's been going on over the last, getting worse over the last 5 years. But I'm really concerned about safety-wise, you know, and the proposal as put by the council, I think would change matters, and I think relaxing it weekends would be of no benefit to the users, because it would just revert back to this free for all. Thank you.
Following what Chris has said, my main concerns are the safety issues and the access. As he's already said, when the car park is full and sometimes 3 or 4 different cars are parked right across, we've got hatched areas which are totally ignored now. When we launch boats, we've got over 60 boats out on the creek between Whale Island and the motorway. When we bring them in for yearly services, we can't actually get in and out of the gate with our tractor and trailer to bring the boats in, as it is now. So we need that restriction sorted out. The access for the dustbin lorries, as Chris has said, and the drays, Fire brigade can't get down there. The coast guards and lifeboats can't get down there when you've got 10 cars across a hatched area. So the safety concerns for us and the school that's there are quite obvious. And I totally agree with what the proposal is. And so I do believe we are going to get a certain amount of spaces for our own use. We did once have 60 spaces, which has gone down to none for a club with over 200 members and families. So we totally agree with the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Okay, excellent. So, in brief, I'm going to support the recommendation. I think as a city, we are challenged for space, and we need to, we all have to recognise that we are competing for that same space, and we have to use them for the sort of the highest order priorities we've got. I am not convinced that abandoned vehicles should be one of those. It will cause some problems for some people, I have no doubt, but I think overall this is the right thing to do. I think offering permits to the club is also the right thing to do. And as a responsible club, I'm sure you will ensure that those are used appropriately, because this is the kind of back and forth that we should be having with community organisations. So I am therefore going to say thank you very much. I'm looking to find... I therefore approve the parking restrictions as advertised on Stamshaw Lake Car Park, and I'm moving to the next item in the agenda. The next item in the agenda is going to be now item number 8, Kent Road, and I'm moving that up because we have only one person left to make a deputation, and also some officers who are waiting to perhaps respond to some of these things, and this seems to be a better use of our time. So if that's okay with the gentleman on the front row, we are going to move to item number 8, Kent Road. And for that, I'm going to ask Ian Myhill to give an initial presentation, and then there'll be space for questions and comments.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is an introduction for the information-only update on road safety issues on Kent Road as we prepare for a possible ETRO, which is in the report which was filed. Just to clarify, no decisions are being sought today. So for context, most people know Kent Road and St Jude's area, connecting Palmerston Road shopping area, has 2 schools at both ends, well, the same school at both ends, where travel is quite frequent between the two for students. It's a narrow carriageway, it's got south side parking, which is close to junctions, there is a high level of pedestrian activity, and as mentioned, has students travelling to and from locations during the day. The nature of the safety problems, as I've mentioned, it's got narrow width, parked vehicles with limited passing opportunities. This is leading to unsafe driver behaviour, pavement mounting, forced priority tailgating, drivers entering passing gaps without checking ahead, and congestion and noise. The introduction of the 18 bus highlighted these issues, but from monitoring from myself and road safety colleagues has not caused them. The problems occur even when there is no bus present. After we received lots of feedback from local residents, we engaged in some extensive monitoring on the site, including multiple site visits, engagement with residents, the Portsmouth High School and Stagecoach themselves. We reviewed, using data, reviewed over 3,700 bus movements. Traffic flows currently sit between 2,500 and 2,600 vehicles per day. In terms of speed, there is quite good speed compliance in the area. Excuse me. The issues is the conflict in behaviour, not actually speeding itself. What should be added, though, is accelerating vehicles is also causing a slight issue on site as well, when people are trying to go for the gaps in the passing places. Evidence from the public supports and does support these findings that we've got. We've got numerous emails and video evidence from the public to support this poor driving behaviour. The non-rating bus service is commercially important and strategically important. Stagecoach confirmed the route is commercially viable The passenger growth is around 30% year on year. Weekly usage is 10,000 plus commercial journeys and 3,000 concessionary trips. You might correct me on that, Lisa, sorry. Fleet was increased from 4 to 7 vehicles to actually appease the demand for the service itself. There's strong patronage at key points such as Clarence Pier, and reducing or rerouting the service would risk both connectivity and economic sustainability. From our monitoring, we have considered 4 options which are in the information report. The work we are doing now is to address the immediate road safety concerns which are evident through poor driver behaviour. Passing places have been identified as the most effective intervention. The aim of this is to obviously reduce pavement mounting, and improve the flow at constraint points along that network, along Kent Road. Allowing these spaces to be removed or relocated, should I say, is to bring the behaviour closer to highway code guidance around junction protection to improve visibility and also to improve the insufficient passing space that exists, which is the root cause. Why we've picked an ETRO? Quite simply, it's flexible. It allows us to adjust measures during the trial. It allows us to view real-world testing of how the solution will work in practice. There is a 6-month statutory consultation, which is for us to consult and engage with the local public and key stakeholders. We have the ability to mend and strengthen or remove interventions as evidence emerges, and it will run for up to 18 months to allow full monitoring and us to collect the required data to make a final decision. Therefore, the outcome will be based on a robust, observed evidence and not assumptions, and will allow us to provide clear engagement with stakeholders. There is a second project, like a parallel project, which will accompany this, and that will work on the relocation of parking bays. We've already had some great ideas from councillors and residents through the letters that went out most recently. These will all be factored into our in our study on the area to where we can relocate these parking that we plan to move from Kent Road. I'd just like to obviously say we appreciate the constructive engagement from residents after those letters. That's been very much a help. Our next steps are to implement the ETRO and the associated monitoring that will go with it. We want to continue engagement with residents, businesses, Portsmouth High School and Stagecoach and other key stakeholders. Plan is then to review data, on-street behaviour and the public feedback through the 6-month consultation and bring back a formal decision report once evidence has been gathered. And finally, just to reiterate, this is an information-only report. No decisions are being sought. Any future decision regarding the experimental traffic order will only be brought forward once the statutory 6-month consultation has taken place. The Council has gathered robust evidence from data collection, on-street monitoring and engagement with key stakeholders, including residents, businesses, Portsmouth High School, bus operators and ward councillors. The purpose of this report is to outline the work completed so far and the planned next steps. But any decision to make the ETRO permanent, amend it or withdraw it will be grounded solely in the outcomes of that formal consultation process and the supporting evidence gathered throughout the trial. That is it.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is actually slightly unusual in that it is an information-only report at which we normally do not allow, or we do not have space in our procedures for deputations. However, Councillor Smythe is a local ward councillor who has been engaged with this for some time and wanted to speak, and I wanted to give her the opportunity to do so. So I'm going to allow her to make a deputation, but I'm going to keep her to the usual rules of 6 minutes. She would be making a deputation as opposed to asking questions and comments. Councillor Smythe.
Chair, thank you very much indeed. I'm aware of the unusual nature of this, and I'm very happy that you've allowed me to speak. I've been involved in this for nearly 6 months because the outcry from the residents of Kent Road about the bus have been pretty enormous. In fact, bigger than I've experienced in terms of their long-lasting nature. I'd like to start by saying the road safety issues, upon which your ETRO is based, isn't really the main concern. There are lots of roads like this in the ward where you can't pass, you can't do things. I'm thinking particularly of Lennox Road South. We've grown used to using that and you can't pass each other. It is very obvious to me, because I use the road quite often, when I'm not using the bus, I do drive down there quite a lot. I'm a great bus user, so there's nothing that I have against buses. I love them. But the 18 bus has not only highlighted the problem, which is what Ian said, but in my view and the view of residents is exacerbated. The proposed ETR isn't acceptable to local residents, mainly because it doesn't give alternative routes for the bus. The other thing that isn't mentioned in the report is the experience of noise that people living in the dwellings along Kent Road experience. The proposal that I'm going to put forward wouldn't have that challenge. They'd literally say they wake up early in the morning, they can't get to sleep at night because of the noise of the buses. And I mean, I think buses do make more noise than cars, and I have a very good deal of sympathy with that. This isn't by way of a complaint at all, but the 18 did go down my road for just round the corner for a while, and we could hear the bus. We live on a main road, we'd expect to, and I wouldn't have dreamt of complaining. But here I can see why that is a main concern for them. So the noise of the bus. The cost of the ETRO, I think, is considerable. And what I would like to propose is that you also evaluate an option 5, which is the suggestion I've been making all the way along to solve this problem, is that we reroute the number 18 bus to go down Portland Road, where there aren't people living right on the bus route. There's a gap, and that they join the rest of the buses in Osborne Road, turning right, and people can change buses at that point rather than walking through the pedestrian way. They can actually easily change buses, which all bus users do, and then the bus can turn right to the end of Castle Road, because I understand there's a desire to have a service to the end of Castle Road, and that would be a lot cheaper. It would use existing bus routes. It would take the noise and the exacerbation of the existing traffic problems out of Kent Road, and it would be much more value for money for the taxpayer than the ETRO, which is proposed and doesn't solve the residents' problems. And I think with the new flats in Handley's Corner, that lots more people want to use the routes that go past that and past the new, hopefully the new doctor's surgery. So, and I think my proposal would have minimum cost and would involve much less re-signing or painting of the road, and certainly wouldn't make permanent changes to the parking, which is, as we've seen in today's meeting, the main concern of people around there. I don't think we need to spend the additional money necessarily on parking. We expect parking to be bad in Southsea, but we don't want to put permanent money into creating parking bays when actually it's the bus that's the problem. I hope that's sufficient to make clear my proposal. As a bus user, I think it would be much better than the proposed ETRO, although I'm grateful for staff and Ian and others for having looked at this. I think I have generally problems with the amount of evidence that's been used and collected and how that is done, and I have a few problems with the communications or lack of them that there have been to people, but I don't want to dwell on those. I want to move forward with this positive suggestion based on a lot of conversations with a lot of residents who are extremely upset and will remain upset with the ETRO. I'm quite certain. So, and just also to say, this is not just affecting St Jude Ward, it's also affecting St Thomas Ward. Both sides of the road are in St Jude Ward. I should know, I walk up and down them delivering leaflets and things often enough, but it does very much affect St Thomas's, particularly the Sussex Road, Sussex Terrace area. So I think there's that slight inaccuracy that undermines what you're trying to do. But thank you very much for what you're doing, and I'm most impressed with the way this committee is run. So that's been very interesting for me as well. And thank you for changing the order, because it's my husband's birthday today, and I didn't want to be too late for the evening. So thank you, Peter.
Thank you, and I now turn, therefore, to questions.
I do have a number of questions that I want to
Councillor Healy.
ask. Thank you. Yes. First of all, I'd like to ask about the frequency of bus travel down Kent Road. Can you confirm what the frequency of buses going down Kent Road in both directions is? Because as you all know, the bus stop actually is outside St Jude's Church on the other side of the road as well. There isn't any other bus stop, but I'd like to know the frequency of buses using Kent Road in both directions.
I can see Lisa nodding and looking to engage?
It's the frequency of the bus service is every 20 minutes in the peak. So that in the peak of the peak travel, there are 3 buses an hour utilising each direction, utilising Kent Road.
So that's 6 buses, basically, 3 one way and 3 the other. Yeah, right, good, that's useful to know. I wanted to ask about the options, because it says there's an options process. Are these the only options that are going to be considered for the ETRO?
So I'm going to answer that one, which is actually, you could say there have been other options in this process, but you always end up in a report coming down to a limited number of options that you are exploring. The ETRO can only be one ETRO. So the ETRO is flexible and enables other variety to be done, but it is what it is. It isn't 4 different, completely different options.
Well, this is not a decision report, this is an information report, isn't it?
Correct.
My question is, are any other options going to be considered before we come to the ETRO?
Just to come in there, the ETRO is to alleviate the immediate road safety issue, which is people driving on the pavement, which is unacceptable, I'm sure you can agree. That's what the basis of that. The basis of using the ETRO in it being flexible and allowing the 6-month consultation and the 18-month period is to allows us to be flexible, to consider other options based on the data that we're recording. The options we originally came up with were based on the data we had at the time. However, the consultation period would allow us to consider other options.
Well, the residents have consistently asked the council to consider the other option, which of course Councillor Smythe mentioned about rerouting the bus, but this option has been considered. I wrote to a senior director of the Transport Service on the 31st of July saying, Kent Road, Portland Road, Osborne Road, can you confirm that these options will be considered? It hasn't even been mentioned in the options, not even to say it's not feasible. And this seems rather odd because we say we're listening to the residents, but we haven't even bothered to actually say anything to the residents about the option that they are actually favouring. And I do think something needs to be done to address that. Other options that could be considered, have we considered any restriction on the weight size of vehicles using Kent Road? Because it's quite clear that the road isn't suitable for very large vehicles. We have weight and width restrictions. Is that going to be considered as a possible way of dealing with the problem? I mean, we don't actually go through them all one by one, but I'm just putting these forward as a possibility that we should consider.
I'm happy to take them. Or so I'd simply say that actually there are a variety of heavy vehicles that have gone down there since time immemorial. Buses are another example of those, and the key issue that has been identified is not related to the fact of the size of the vehicle per se. So when I was down at the site with residents looking at what was going on, we saw in a 20-minute chat standing on the corner, 2 cars approach each other and the car go up on the pavement. The cars were not big, that was the behaviours and the actions that they took, and that looked very dangerous to me.
Yeah, okay. The other way you can stop vehicles from mounting the pavement is to install bollards on the pavements. Would that be considered as a possible way of dealing with the problem?
My challenge to that is, when do the bollards stop? This problem is everywhere in Portsmouth. Are we just going to bollard the whole city? We have to do something about driver behaviour.
Well, however, the reason I'm asking is because, I would have expected something to say, well, we're not going to do this because it's too expensive. And they're not here. And I'm just saying these are options that have been mentioned to me as a ward councillor, and I can't give an answer as to what the council considered because nobody has told me. So I'm now getting some information about that.
The council have not proposed actually a specific solution at this point in time, and therefore there isn't something to go against. Personally, bollards are a possibility. We've talked about planters. There are many things that we need to do. So the purpose of bringing this now, there has been, I think, some reasonable commentary that people have not felt that there's been an opportunity to put things onto the public record and to start to see some of the options and issues that are being considered, and that is what this has tried to enable. It has not reached the end of its journey, and it has been actually a very interesting project because it has evolved over the periods of time as we have looked at particular issues. There were initial issues about concerns from residents about congestion, for example. That was looked at for a while, and then it was proven that that wasn't an issue, but during the process of looking at that, other information came out which highlighted there was a greater safety problem than had originally been perceived, and that has therefore been the thing that has come forward.
Has the option to remove parking spaces actually decided which parking spaces and how many will be removed?
Do you see proposal for specific car parking spaces to be removed or changed? No, so that hasn't been done, and it is, from the purpose, the way the paperwork as it works, that will be a separate piece of work. It is in parallel because as the work started to identify the safety issue, and the best way to address the safety issue was to address the mouths of key roads, which might require then removing parking spaces. As you will well know, that parking zone is one of the most pressured in the city, so taking out parking spaces is a major consideration. And so an effort is now being made to see if there can be some compensatory ones introduced such that that issue is negated. But I don't have there isn't a specific plan on the table at the moment.
In the report, and I think a letter suggested that the parking on Osborne Road by the Queen's Hotel could be converted from its current open parking to residence parking, which seems a reasonable thing to
and I think one of the things that, as this has started to go, and that's why I'm quite keen to get a proper formal consultation going, is that other ideas and suggestions have come up which can be explored.
A letter was mentioned that went out to residents. Could I please have a copy of the letter that was sent to residents in St Jude Ward and adjacent roads? Given the letter was sent out 2 weeks ago, why haven't I been given a copy as a ward councillor?
Don't have a good answer for that. I think you should have done. That is, as a usual thing, if we've made a mistake on that basis, I would apologise.
I think my colleague Councillor Smythe hasn't had one either. No, so we neither has had one.
I don't think anyone will have received it then.
Well, the next question was going to be, has Councillor Hugh Mason received a copy or seen a copy of the letter?
So usually the letters to ward councillors go out as a group. I'm looking, can anyone help me on this?
A letter was sent via email to all councillors, but I do need to check that with the guys that sent it. So apologies if that has been missed.
No, I asked a question. I said, did Councillor Mason receive or have sight of a copy of the letter that was sent out to residents?
I believe so. The email should have the letter attached to it. There was a separate letter for councillors and a separate letter for residents.
I mean, I have received no letter. In fact, the only first sight I had of a letter was when a resident sent an email to me with a photo taken on their phone of the letter that had been sent out and asked me if I had seen this and did I have anything, and because I hadn't. And to be quite honest, you know, I have not seen a single email that has had a letter attached from the council. However, I did speak to Councillor Mason at the Civic Awards, the Civic 100 ceremony on a couple of weeks ago on Sunday, and I said, Hugh, did you get a copy of the letter that's gone out to residents in Kent, around Kent Road? And he said, no, but I was given a draft copy to have a look at and comment on. Was that the case? Did he receive a copy to look at and comment on?
I've discussed the issue with Councillor Mason many times. As you could well imagine, it's a live issue. I honestly can't remember whether I will have had the letter in my hand at that point in time, especially since my expectation would have been that ward councillors would have received an email about it. So it is possible that I have done, but I would hope that it was after such an email should have gone out.
Well, this is highly unusual. I mean, I don't think Councillor Smythe and I have missed the email. We both don't seem to have any record of it. And the fact that a copy was actually shared with a Liberal Democrat member without even giving copies or even giving the opportunity for other members, ward members, to see it does seem to be highly irregular and unusual.
It would have been a mistake, Councillor Heaney.
It certainly would. Will somebody ensure that I can get a copy of the letter and Councillor Smythe as well?
Yes, you can be sure.
Right, good. I have to say the discussion, the report says that officers have engaged with residents, ward councillors, etc. I have to say Mr Myhill's correspondence has been very good. He's copied us into correspondence that either residents have sent us and him, and then he's copied us into replies. But I don't think that my colleague, Councillor Smythe, and I really have been engaged with discussions about the options. We haven't really had a chance to talk to our officers about this, except when the reports come out. So I do hope that when we come to prepare this ETR, we will get more involvement in the preparation of this, so that when it does come to the transport, we'll have an opportunity to be clear that we're all heading in hopefully the right direction. I wanted to ask about when is the ETRO likely to come to a decision-making meeting for approval to start the process?
I could be... no, so someone should give me a more official answer than I'm about to give.
Well, we have designated authority to start the process anyway. However, we have obviously the pre-election period coming up, so it's obviously going to be very difficult to engage with councillors during that time. So I think we'd be waiting till after the pre-election while we prepare some designs, and then maybe in the first weeks of June, we can then engage with councillors on the options that we're looking to take forward, in particularly the pavement the parking we'd probably be relocating.
I think that is probably all of my questions.
Councillor Bosher? Sorry, comments?
Well, obviously I recognise that the issue facing Kent Road is not solely to do with the buses, but they are a potential contributing factor, and clearly we do need to do something about it. I think the residents feel a sense of frustration about the way they have been dealt with. I mean, I've got another letter here which I actually received, I think, today, asking some questions about the issue. Now, I know, Councillor Candice, you said you'd had a meeting with residents, and I know my colleague, Councillor Smythe, asked to have a meeting with you with residents, but I don't think she was involved in that meeting as far as I'm aware. So I'm curious about, I have quite a level of regard for you for the way you handle things, but I have to say I am rather disappointed in the way this matter has been dealt with, because despite my colleague Judith Smythe's request to have a meeting, nothing seemed to have happened. You seem to have had a meeting with residents but not invited her along, or any of the ward councillors. We don't appear to have got a letter which went out to all residents. Can you imagine a situation where we're there with a thing in your ward and people ring you up and say, what's going on? I haven't got a clue, you know? One of the things I said when I took over as Chair of Housing many years ago, because we had a couple of incidents of it happening, I said to officers that if any correspondence whatsoever is sent out to residents about any schemes, any refurbishments, whatever, it is absolutely imperative and no excuses that a ward councillor will always be given a letter for whatever they, so they know what's going on. So if they get a call from a resident at the weekend saying what's going on, they can actually answer it. And I have to say it's not in your time, but it's not the first time I've had to raise questions about issues about getting information to councillors that we are probably entitled to. So I do hope we're not slipping back into some unfortunate habits that may have happened some time ago. I mean, I welcome the opportunity that we're going to have to do something about this, but I do think that it's important that we try and look at all the options and actually that we respond to residents' concerns and their proposals. So, for example, when we do a report, we say, residents wanted us to do this, but we can't do this for the following reason. I don't think we can just ignore it and say, well, it doesn't matter, we're not going to even consider it. I think you have to give residents reasons as to why you're not doing things. And I think in relation to the suggestions that many residents have made about the number 18 bus rerouting along Portland Road, If you aren't going to do it, that's fine, but give us a reason. Give us a reason why it's not feasible, why it's not possible. So a reason the residents can then say, oh, right, okay, we understand that. If you don't do that, it does look like you're just ignoring what they are saying. And I think that's unfortunate, because we do need a solution to the problem. We need to take people with us, and we need to be open as much as we possibly can in both framing the issues, but also sometimes telling people why we can't do things.
Thank you. So I've got a few things to say in response to this. So firstly, the issue on Kent Road started kind of a year ago, and it is actually a consequence of a wider set of actions across the city. So we are generally trying to expand, make more frequent and extend the bus routes in the city to bring more buses closer to more people. And that is one of the things that has helped us increase the patronage of buses in the city greatly over the last couple of years. As you will well know, I'm always trotting out that we're up 41% in the last couple of years. This scheme in particular was created with the objective of extending it to get down to Clarence Pier in particular, and as a secondary benefit to the Castle Road area, and also to the residents who at the moment have to walk several hundred metres to find their way into the bus network. And all the research says that the further away you make bus stops from people, the fewer people who actually use it. So there was one point early in this process where someone was saying that we should have been saying not just St Jude, but because it goes into Sussex Road, that we should be talking about St Thomas or the other ones. Actually, arguably, we should be talking about the residents of Hilsea and Copner as well, because they are now enabled to be part of a direct bus service, because although you can get people to change buses, everyone prefers it, much prefers it, if they go directly. So the conception of this scheme was to get more people on the bus, to get more people more easily down to the seafront, especially in the summer, and to highlight some new areas. As the project has got going, I'll be honest, the scope of the project has shifted, which is never very good for a project, because what emerged, and what emerged more and more strongly as we went along, were the road safety issues. So the bar has kept on shifting. And I apologise if that has led to a slippage around this. And one of the reasons for trying to bring an information report today is to at least give these arguments to be enabled, because we're not making a final decision or report yet. And a final decision or report might well be the place in which you would comment more extensively on some of the options which were not taken out. This is a for information report, and it is ultimately towards moving us towards a structured formal consultation process through the ETRO to be able to gather residents' views. I would say, going back to that big picture about the city, that there is always a balance on bus routes to be had between what is the impact in a particular local area and what is the impact across the city. So, yes, we should be listening to the local residents. Yes, we should be looking to see if there are local variations that we can do. But there is also a bigger strategic decision that is being made about the bus network, because the increase in frequency and the extension of the number 18 has enabled that particular route. I could look to Lisa to get me the exact number, but a massive increase in the amount of patronage on that route. And it is also looking like it is lifting that route into being a commercially viable long-term route, which will then enable us to take money from that and reinvest it in doing other things. So this is part of the wider BSIP LTP4 long-term transport plan, and it needs to be seen in that context as well. There were some issues raised about local ward councillors not receiving an email on something like this. If that has occurred, I apologise. I hope I have a reasonably good record about trying to hold sessions in which I invite councillors to come to and distributing messages out. But to be honest, I may be responsible for, or I may not be responsible for. It doesn't matter. It hasn't happened, and that is an error. I have had conversations with Councillor Smythe, and I would have happily had conversations with yourself about it directly. There was a request, I do recall, to have a big sort of public meeting on the streets with many people. I didn't want to do that, so I had an initial meeting with, there have been 3 or 4 people who have been most closely associated with this from the beginning, who were the authors of the, there was a survey and petition that was raised, and we have chosen to dialogue with them rather than have a big group of people standing around on a road which we are now identifying as, you know, potentially liable to people going up on the side of the pavement. We haven't had a public meeting per se about the issue, and that might be something that we do as part of the ETRO process if that looks like it is something that is worthwhile. But really that should be done, as I think it was Councillor Sanders was saying earlier, when there are actually some clear options and specific things that are being proposed, and we're moving towards the process of actually making a decision. And we're not there yet, is the truth of the matter. There were also some other comments that I was just going to comment on as we went through. So clearly safety is the driving issue. On the parking, everything has a consequence and a knock-on effect, so we are trying to see what can be done to mitigate that if it proves that that becomes a necessary part of any solution. There was an issue around noise that was raised by Councillor Smythe. I think it is a legitimate point. There is no doubt that buses are louder than the average vehicle. Not as loud perhaps as a big truck that's going down there to do and make a delivery, but it's certainly going down there more frequently. However, if I consider this road, Kent Road, in conjunction or in comparison to many other roads in the city, there are many roads where the housing is actually closer and where there are frequent buses going by. So I don't see that in itself a reason to not progress with it. Otherwise, I would be treating this road differently to roads which are already receiving buses. And if I put a wider point in there, one of the reasons why I'm pushing so hard to introduce electric buses into the city is because it takes away that noise issue. We've done a little bit so far. I hope there will be more that we can announce in the next couple of years that really moves that issue forward. We've talked about congestion and safety. These issues are particularly acute in the summer when there's an awful lot of visitors, so the implications on the parking need to be thought about. And I've spoken about the citywide issues. So I think we've had, I think it's fair to say, a fairly extensive discussion and opportunity for people to speak on this as an issue, and I'm glad we have done so. You can see from the report, the information report, the direction that I am seeking to move us in, and that is to do an ETRO and to run a proper consultation during the summer period. The ETRO, I believe, is the right vehicle for doing this because I think there will be some variations that we want to try, and honestly TROs are a fairly inflexible tool with a very long lead time, and it will be quite difficult to, it might not be that this is got right exactly the first time. So for example, we talked about bollards and planters, which are bollards before they actually get nailed into the ground. Might be an interesting thing to do and just to see what needs to be done. The duration is moderate in terms of bus times, so it's not nothing in 6 months. 18 months there is a firm limit towards it, and during that period we may decide that we have reached a conclusion which we are happy to go ahead with, and that is what we will then do. We can simply conclude the ETRO, and then we will have to do a formal TRO, which will be a final decision about something, particularly if that is affecting things like parking spaces. So that's my final word on this item today. Thank you very much. Thank you to Councillor Smythe for coming and giving that deputation. I don't think I've actually saved you that much time for you getting away early, but we did what we could. and we have a few more items that we need to go back to finish off. Thank you. So, we now are going to move back to, and feel free to shout out if I get this wrong. We have certainly done item number 5. We have item number 6, Local Transport Plan 4, the implementation plan. And Joe, I believe you're going to speak to this. We have not. Joe, stand by, my apologies. Barbara, I think we are back to you.
Thank you, Councillor. It's my final item for the day. This report is to consider objections to proposed weighting restrictions at the junction of Hewitt Road and Kensington Road in Compton Ward. The T-junction of Hewitt Road and Kensington Road has been identified as a site where visibility between road users is particularly poor, owing to vehicles being parked too close to the junction. The junction is on a designated pedestrian route to Mayfield School and is also intended to be the site of a school crossing patrol, which would operate during the morning and afternoon school times. A proposal to extend the existing weighting restrictions, which are currently 5 metres in all directions from the junction, extend them to 10 metres in each direction, has been advertised, and we received 2 objections. I should also mention that the extension on Kensington Road, extending on the north side of Hewitt Road, would entail relocating a disabled bay, which has been provided primarily for a local resident, and that resident is one of the objectors, and they say that the proposal to relocate the disabled bay would cause them more difficulty in being able to access their vehicle. The objector also feels that the traffic issues around the school only exist for a short time during school start and finish times, and the weighting restrictions are often ignored at these times. But the proposal for having an at any time restriction is because the poor visibility exists at all times. The other objection is from another resident who feels that the extension, like the first one, the extension to the weighting restrictions would have no effect on the behaviour of the parents who already park on existing restrictions at school start and finish times, and they feel a loading restriction at these times would be more effective. However, loading restrictions, the way the law is written, is that restricts loading of goods, but it still allows dropping off and picking up of passengers from cars, so it would be of limited benefit. And given the safety implications, and particularly that it's on a designated route to school, and my colleague who looks after school crossing patrols wants to be able to site a school crossing patrol at that junction, the recommendation is for the restrictions to be introduced as advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Bosher.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's not my ward, but I have a ward colleague that is based down there. The nature of the objections seem to suggest that painting double yellow lines is not going to make a blind bit of difference to the parking issues of residents picking up kids there. And Councillor Swan has indicated to me that, to use his phrase, it's like the Wild West there, particularly at school and proper. So I guess my question is, going forward, even though putting in the double yellow lines might make a bit of difference, and putting in a crossing patrol, because I notice it says intended there, so a timeline there would assist somewhere along the line. But what's to stop people parking on double yellow lines? Because as I understand it, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, if you've got double yellow lines there, you've got a sort of 15-minute grace period to drop off and pick up anyway. So by putting 20 quid's worth of yellow paint down there for school drop off and pick up time, people are still going to go and pick up little Johnny, basically, aren't they, and park on the double yellow lines. It's where's the enforceability is where I'm getting to if we actually do that. because I can think of schools in my ward where double yellow lines are just yellow graffiti at school times, and I'm sure Councillor Heaney can, I'm sure we all can as ward councillors. It's about the enforceability going forward, because otherwise I suspect that this is a TRO that's just wasting its time otherwise.
On a technical basis, I'm afraid I have to ask Barbara, is he correct?
To a certain extent, the observation period is 5 minutes, but I accept that that still gives people sufficient time to drop off. I'm not sure it would give them sufficient time to sort of accompany a child into school and back again. And also having a school crossing patrol present at that site. At the moment, the restrictions are not sufficient to allow them to operate safely. If we've got the restrictions in place, the presence of a school crossing patrol themselves, it is anticipated that that would deter people from stopping sort of right in front of them on yellow lines. But as you, I fully accept that we can't control people's behaviour.
About Barbara's knowledge, I thought it was 15 minutes, to be quite honest, because that's what CEOs have told me in the past when I've said, why are you standing there looking at that vehicle parked on W lines? Oh, we've got to give it 15 minutes before we can put a ticket on it, is what I've been told. So I don't know whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes, but irrespective of that, there is a period of time that we can actually do that. I also understand, and I don't know how often we do this, and I might be going off down a different route, that you get those two little yellow clips on the curb, that is, you can't stop there, period. Do we ever consider putting those in some areas where we've got that sort of aspect? Is that a different sort of traffic regulation order?
That is a loading ban, but so you can't stop and load and unload goods, but you can stop to drop off and pick up passengers, but it's literally just to stop and pick up or drop off passengers. And that's national law.
Does that, I'm probably going down a slightly different route here, Peter, just pardon me on that one. So if these two little clips are on the curb and somebody pulls up and parks on that, a CEO still cannot do anything for a period of 5 minutes. Is that what we're saying?
CEO can issue an instant ticket if there's no passenger being picked up or dropped off. So it's probably about 1 minute observation. They certainly don't have to do the 5 minute observation. But they obviously have to be present at the time. But then having those curb blips, having a loading ban, can also, if it's longer than it's needed, and further away than just at a junction, then that could negatively impact the residents, as in they wouldn't be able to receive sort of shopping deliveries and the like.
I'm just saying, I'm just sort of seeing, is there a better way of doing this? Because in this particular instance, the objections suggest it's not going to make a blind bit of difference. The local ward councillor there is saying essentially the same, and I think we've all got experience around the city outside of school. I certainly have. I live in a road with a school in it, and I can see let's call them parents, let's leave it like that, parked up on double yellow lines 45 minutes before the school actually kicks out at the end of the day because they want to get there as close as possible. And I think that's an extreme. You've got to wait for a CEO to be there to actually do that. But arguably, the CEO turns up 15 minutes beforehand, the school kicks out and sees a car parked there because somebody's now left their car to get, then they're not going to get a ticket anyway. The fact they've been there over an hour is irrelevant. Is there a better way of actually doing this? I think there's probably something going down a different route to see how we can actually do that, to deal with the sorts of frustrations that people have when it comes to parking around schools. Because certainly I think this one also makes reference to parking within the school and maybe teaching staff as well. But I think probably the nub of the problem is more to do with parents that I'm sure if you parked in double yellow lines in a road which they lived in, they'd cite child safety, but it's always okay to go and do it somewhere else in somebody else's street. And that's probably where I'm going with it.
Yeah, so if I go back to your initial description of it as yellow graffiti, I'm slightly more positive whilst recognising the truth of your limitations around what it does. So I think it provides, at minimum, a moral case and supports schools from when they send out their how should things work around here and you're dropping your kids off, what should you do? It helps them along that process. We do send enforcement people to ticket people who are parking inappropriately. I am aware that the incidence of parking is much greater than the incidence of PCNs that are issued, and that's a reflection of the number of COs that we have. As the world moves forward, there are more cameras and things coming in, but as yet I don't think there is a camera kind of shoot on site enforcement possible around schools, because I think that would actually be a way of tackling it long term, but I don't think there's something like that available at the moment. Exactly. So, and I commend you for doing it on the yellow zigzags, but I don't think it applies to the double yellow lines, for example. We can't spot someone who's sitting there for 45 minutes on double yellow lines and ding them with a ticket. Maybe that will come in the future, but it's not there yet.
Could I just perhaps make a request then in this instance? Because I expect you're going to probably say, yes, let's do this and put in the double yellow lines. And I totally get that, because there's also a sightline issue there as well. So I totally understand that. And there's obviously nothing a CEO can do there at the moment if there isn't double yellow lines there, because there's nothing to enforce. Could I ask then that when the double yellow lines go in, that we can arrange for some sort of CEO visibility, at least in the short term when we go there, so that we can address the issue, even if it's only an education piece, because there's nothing they can do for 5 minutes or 15 minutes. I think the presence of a uniform tends to make people think twice before they actually do something which they think's in their best interest, but is actually being stupid from a road safety point of view.
I can see behind you, Councillor Bosher, various officers nodding that we can do this, and flying the flag and being visible, particularly at key moments like start of school terms, is really something we should think about, because it's part of a much broader Safer Schools programme that we're trying to introduce. Any other questions?
It's not so much a question as a comment on following what Councillor Bosher was saying. I mean, I think it's true that parents don't always take any notice of crossing patrol people, because at Langston School I've seen cars parking right next to it where there is a metal barrier to stop people walking across the road. And the other problem you have, of course, is that if we do send out PCOs, they can face quite a lot of aggression and abuse for doing their job, which is unacceptable. So we may have to occasionally ask if PCSOs can come along with them as well, which of course is a police resource, but you know, it is rather unpleasant. I agree that I think putting lines in is better than not, because it gives you something to enforce. The issue about cameras is interesting, because I think Langston School does have a sign outside which shows a camera, but I don't know if they've got one. It might be one of these things that is a sort of sign, but I don't know.
All of the schools where they've got yellow zigzags have got that camera sign out of them, and a pole. But the cameras, we don't have as many cameras as you have schools in the city, so they rotate them around the various sites, if you see what I mean. They might tend to stay longer in places where they're going to make a lot of money, having said that, but generally it's more about the deterrent, the fact that there may be a camera there, but they are rotated around the city, as I understand it. I'm sure Felicity will disagree.
It is definitely the deterrent effect. Okay, Felicity is limbering up at the back, so.
It was just to say that we do have mobile cameras as part of that, and they go where we need, where we have road safety concerns reported to ensure effective enforcement. So that's the primary focus of moving those cameras around. So, and just to say, we do use those cameras on School Keep Clears, but we can't use them on double yellows. We're not allowed to. So just to clarify that point, thank you.
And the final point for the record is we don't do it on a money-making basis. I often say that if I had the opportunity to run like some of the private parking companies, you know, a scheme which seems to be designed to generate money, Portsmouth City Council will be getting a lot more income than it does from bad parking, but that isn't the primary driver. It is driven by where we see hotspots, which are also associated with potential danger, particularly to school children. Mindful of time, any other questions or comments on this? Because I think we're all heading to the same place, which is I will draw a veil over some of the mysteries of the camera enforcement, but on this instance, I will say that I support the recommendation to put these lines in. Okay. Joe, now it is time to talk about your item, which is the long-term implementation plan, which I'm doing from memory. Yes, local transport plan for implementation plan 26-27.
Thank you. So I'm presenting the decision report for the annual LTP4 implementation plan for scheme delivery following the 2026-27 funding allocation. The local transport plan was adopted by Portsmouth City Council at full council on the 13th of October 2021, alongside a 3-year implementation plan, with the most recent revised version running from 2025-26 to 2027-28. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for the local transport plan for implementation plan for new scheme delivery in the 2026-27 year, and the budget was approved as part of the council's capital programme at full council on 24th of February 2026. Where Transport were awarded £1,495,000 for the 2026-27 LTP4 programme. It is worth noting that additional amounts were awarded to deliver other transport and infrastructure works as listed within the report. Appendix A lists the proposed schemes to be funded from the 26-27 LTP4 capital allocation. It includes 6 schemes which Portsmouth City Council has a statutory duty to deliver. Some of the schemes listed include proposed sites and measures to be delivered, the majority of which have progressed through the formalised feasibility procedure, which is summarised in the main report at paragraph 4, Transport Scheme Prioritisation. And the Transport Scheme Prioritisation process allows for it's a clear, robust process for managing transport requests, and feasibility and investigative works prioritised based on strategic objectives. Appendix B within the report outlines a number of schemes and work streams that we're currently in delivery with, and their alignment to the 4 strategic objectives to deliver cleaner air, prioritise walking and cycling, transform public transport, and support business and protect our assets. So it's a recommendation of the report that this scheme list be approved and adopted as Portsmouth's LTP implementation plan for 2026-27, and if you've got any questions, then I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Sorry, just one. On page 9, it talks about the trial of the Sustainable Last Mile Logistics and Motor Consolidation Scheme, which is running as a trial from May last year to May this year. Given that we'll need time to evaluate the pilot, could we expect to get a sort of report on what it's been, how successful otherwise it's been by the autumn, sort of?
Felicity?
Yeah, happy to. So that project is being reported through the Solent Transport Future Transport Zone trials. So actually we had a Solent Transport Joint Committee only this week where we've given an update on that trial, but I'm very happy with Councillor Cavendish's approval to bring that as an information item here if there is interest in that pilot project.
Yeah, very happy. In fact, delighted that someone is asking questions about it.
Well, it's potentially quite important because we're concerned about the number of delivery vehicles in the city. If we could find a way of maybe bringing that down, it could have quite an interesting and possibly important impact. So that's why I think it's interesting. So, yeah.
I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Healy. Okay, that was questions. Any comments? So in the interest of time, the recommendations are clearly stated in 2.1 to 2.3. I'm happy to take the recommendations as so stated. Can we now move to the next item in the agenda, which I think is number 8. It's number 7. It is number 7, you are quite right, which is a hopefully quite simple one on a change we need to make arising from the EV programme. Bethan.
Yes. Yes, I can keep this really short. The purpose of this report is to inform the Cabinet member, for the purposes of the public record, that the previously approved location for an EV charge point on Wallerstein Avenue, which was made or brought to this decision meeting in July 2025 under batch 2, cannot be implemented, and therefore we are requesting approval to repeal that decision, and it's just a formal process part of TRO making, and that's it. Well, indeed, yes.
So, any questions? Any comments? Otherwise,
I know why it's being made, because I live close to that road, and particularly on the football days, you probably get somebody running into it and knocking it over. So.
I mean, yes, in effect, it's the unpredictable nature of new low-level infrastructure. So we work on the basis that there will be sites that drop out because they're just not implementable when you get down to it, and this is one of them. There will be a few more coming over coming months, but maybe this is a good opportunity to give the really good news.
Bethan, I was about to ask you if you would like to just say
Yes.
what the position now is about EV charge
Yes.
points in the city.
As of yesterday, we have 315 live operational electric charge points across the city, with a also. Oh yes, yes, absolutely. Yes. 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 And there's probably about 9 or 10 more. So we'll be over the 320 figure that we started off with by the end of this month.
And I think this is another one where it will be very interesting to bring a for information report, because there were lots of questions as we went through the installation of these about usage and the consumption by site. There are some restrictions, commercial sensitivities about how that information is revealed, but I think there's some important information to put out there in the public domain, but it's a little bit early for doing that. Okay, on that positive note, unless anyone has any other urgent business, I'm going to look to close the meeting. Thank you, everyone. It's 6:20. The meeting is now officially closed.